Yes.
we just have our fall
I know, right?
coordinating. This is so good.
We coordinated really well, ladies. I'm so proud of
I
us.
didn't even get the memo.
I know, me neither.
I'm like, don't blend into the background this time. So,
Oh yeah,
Would you
so
have
we
white or
totally
cream on
filmed
or
the.
something?
Yes, we
Yeah.
did. We both
and we
ended
both
up
showed
with.
up,
Oh.
and I never wear
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a cream
Yeah.
color thing, but I'm like, oh, it's
It's
sweater
like when
weather.
you're like behind a
Yeah.
green screen and you have a green shirt
Yeah.
on, and yeah.
I'm like, we're gonna
Yes,
be
funny.
heads and hands. That's all.
I mean,
Yeah,
that
we
could be
joke
fun.
around with kids because we shoot against a
Yeah,
green screen
yeah,
for
yeah.
the school ones. And there was this little kid, he was probably like 7 or 8, and he came up and he had the green shirt on.
Yeah.
And so he takes this photo, and I was like, that's only going to be your head, right? And he was like, what? And I'm like, no, I'm just kidding. I'm like, it's okay. You'll
my
see your whole thing. Because he was just like, oh no, this is my favorite color. He had like a Minecraft shirt or something on.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, it was so funny.
Oh yeah.
That's
It's like,
funny.
yeah, you're just a floating head at this point. I don't know what to tell you.
I mean,
I'd
that's
be
pretty
like,
cool
that's
if you
the
ask
best
me.
ever.
Floating head in like a fall background, for fall
Yes.
portraits. Or
It'd
like
be
the
so-
lasers come through and like
That'd be
just
Oh my
the
God.
head.
glorious.
Yes.
Without creating mountains where the valleys used to be. And all the things I thought I knew were changing like the seas. Yeah. But I've overcome it all and I'm still here. Oh, I gotta change perspectives if I really wanna see.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We are back for our second season of Unfiltered, and we have our very first guest of our second
Yay.
season. We are very excited. We have Rebecca Thomas here with us today, and we can't wait to hear more about her and all the really cool things that she does, which totally line up with everything that we already stand for and we believe in, and I'm just really, really excited. So I met Rebecca down at Art Prize, and just randomly, standing there talking about my art piece, and she
Yes.
came in with, was it your husband?
My boyfriend.
Your boyfriend.
Okay.
They came in, and it was just one of those instant connections. We
love
just started talking, and then I told her more about like all the things that we
Yep.
do, and then she
Yes.
got a hold of me.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was great. I told her to email me, and she did. So
I really love this because I loved being down there when we filmed this down there and watching the interactions of everybody. I couldn't manage living in Grand Rapids anymore now that I live where I do.
right.
But I love coming down here and just enjoying the people. I
Oh, yeah.
loved it. I loved seeing the people out and about and walking around, but I loved watching you interact with everybody.
Oh, thank you.
I adored every minute of it, and I'm talking you up, but people were really sharing some meaningful things with you.
Oh, so many. I can't even tell you how many people like cried, and then
Yeah.
I was able to hug them and just have that beautiful connection. So
great.
yeah. So tell us more about who you are and
Yeah.
what you do.
There's so much to tell. I am Rebecca Thomas. I'm more than a life coach. And I say more than a life coach because everything that I do is going to translate to all areas of your life. So we work on boundaries, self-confidence, self-trust, intuition, authenticity, all of the things. And if we're doing it right, which I insist on us doing it right, that's going to translate to personal, professional, everything in between. Right now, I actually work with 30 to 50 something women who have scaled the corporate ladder, climbed professionally, might even be pivoting in their lives, and they've just put so much time and energy into building that piece of their lives that they're stopping to kind of take an inventory of what's going on
I love that.
and realize that there's one key piece missing, them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So often.
Yes.
Yeah. So I help them get out of their heads, get out of their houses, get out of their businesses, and get back into their lives.
I love that.
Yeah, and then I also co-own a women's event company called Kaleidoscope Effect, which is our own curated events just for women. So even when we have our bigger events, like every vendor, every volunteer, every attendee is a woman, just because conversations are different when it's only women in the room.
Oh, absolutely.
And then on top of all that, and the thing that led me to life coaching, I actually do Airbnb too. So
Okay.
yeah, we have 2 that we own, 1 that we co-manage, and then we also do a bedroom out of our house, which is how I got into life coaching, was actually hosting people in my home.
Interesting.
Really? I was going to ask
Okay.
where
The
that
short
came
of it.
from.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that is fantastic. Yeah.
I
So
love
she works
it.
with women, which is
I-
awesome. So going back to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about me?
Well, so how do you, give me how would somebody find you? How would they come to you for their services? How would they even know that they need you is a really good thing.
Okay, so finding me, I feel like, is the easy part. I am super accessible, whether it's by phone, Messenger, all the not all the social platforms, but like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm Maria Venus everywhere that I am, and my website is also Maria Venus. Marie's my middle name, and there's a whole story behind that, but Venus is love, so Marie of love is just what it all
I
boils
love
down
that.
to.
Yes, that's amazing.
And that's my overarching for all of my personal businesses, not the ones that I co-own. So that's how they would find me. Or Google Rebecca Thomas More Than a Life Coach, and like interviews that I've done, podcasts. I've done a few seminars, things like that will definitely pop up too. Pain points, tons of frustration and resentment, and just this knowing that there has to be something more, but not knowing where to start or where that's coming from, and probably even trying to like gaslight yourself about something being off, but you just can't get rid of that feeling. So that's usually the biggest thing. The other thing is, are you a transitional character? So when I talk about that, and that's not my language, but it's what it is. It's Are you the first in your family, your circles, organizations, anything like that, where you're actually the one that's creating change, that you're affecting change because you're thinking differently and doing things differently. Growth mindset is a huge part of that, but also just the unwillingness to do it the way we've always done it, just because that's the way we've done it. So really looking at that. And then the other piece would be you're craving connection, and not just with other people, but with yourself. Like, who am I? What do I want? What is it? What do I even want in my life? What's important to me? What are my values? So that's another piece that's kind of stirring around in there some way. Usually don't have the language when we first connect. My clients don't. They just know something's off. And then when we start to uncover those things, that's where the language starts to come up, and they can start to understand like what's going on, but understand more about themselves too, and then take that trajectory forward. So, yeah.
So I was reading on your website, and you were talking about, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? And that it literally is that you are getting sick from, the things that are going on. So how would a woman know that they're not just sick, that they are actually, this is what they're experiencing?
That's pretty tricky, especially in our society, like with the tendency to cover things up and practice self-care, but it's not actually self-care. It's just covering up, like it's using a method versus a principle. So it's that very Band-Aid approach to a gaping wound.
Oh, yeah.
So more than anything, I would say there's something going on in your life that just does not feel okay, but it's happening over and over and over. It's like that lesson that you're just ramming your head into the wall again and again and again and again, and not actually creating that like fundamental change that's going to shift your life. So that would be like the key thing. Sick and tired, I mean, it can look so many different ways. Again, feelings, resentment, dis-ease. So feeling just uncomfortable in yourself, whether that's physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, all of those things. But you're just not comfortable, and things do not feel right. And that's like the key to it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Sounds like my life. What now? I mean, on the other side, 'cause I have a group that I run for women dealing with all of these same thing, and we were just now in the third week of this new group that started, and truly the foundational building blocks of it was self-awareness and self-care. And when they started this group 3 weeks ago, all of them, they're looking at the material, and I'm like, tell me what you're thinking. They're like, is there more stuff? Like, and I'm like, no. And they're like, really? And I said, yeah, really. You're not filling in the blanks. You're not going to study this thing that I'm going to tell you. No, there's none of that. But we are going to address this. And they're like, oh, okay. They came back the second week going, that wasn't very easy to do. And I didn't like doing it. And I'm like, that's exactly the reason why you should be doing it. Self-awareness and self-care go hand in hand. You need the two together, where you're taking that time to get in tune with your mindset, with your thoughts, and to recognize and understand where they're coming from. Some of them come from a negative place and not a good place for you. And those are areas that let's work on those things and see if we can get those over to the other side, where it's the good feeding of your mind, body, soul, all of that kind of stuff. So I love that you're doing it in the settings that you're doing it. My group is very much geared towards women coming out of abuse and trauma backgrounds. So they have those components where they're now reactionary to things, just deeply ingrained behaviors from when they were just little. So this is a fascinating conversation. I'm really glad you're here. So it's like, oh, I speak this language.
Right.
So I'm ordained in ministry, and I'm a chaplain, and that's what I do. I've got my life coach thing hanging on the wall too, but I fly the chaplain flag, and but I'm loving it. So I love that you're doing it because the need is huge. It's huge.
Yeah, and like you said, like self-awareness is a huge piece of that, and that's a thing that a lot of us don't have. But even something when you were talking about, like they showed up and there were these materials and they were looking for more, right?
Yes.
It's so funny how so many people, like they want more to do.
Tell me exactly how to.
What is it? It looks just like
Yeah.
this. Like they want that
Yes.
certainty and they want to be able to check off the boxes, but that's exactly what's keeping them disconnected from themselves.
I know it's that teaching people to be self-thinking again, and that will only come when you become aware of self. It was shocking how they didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that was a great example of self-care.
Yeah.
So what's self-awareness? And they were just truly,
Yeah.
a lot of them
It's
just
an
really
epiphany.
aren't
Yeah.
understanding. And then it clicks. And the ones that are like, oh, we thought this was going to be simple and we're just observing. They're like, I don't think we're going to like this very much. And
Right.
I said, every once in a while, it'll be hard, but sometimes you have to do hard things. Just get over that hard little hurdle, and you're going to be thanking yourself later for the gift you gave to you. So
Well, and it takes time. I mean, I was also reading that you said something about a year-long kind of process. I don't know what the exact time is, but in this world that we live in of this instant gratification of just fix me now, you know, just make it stop, make it go
Fix
away,
me.
whatever,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't work like that. Anything lasting doesn't work like that. You know, maybe the initial one, you're like, okay, I feel so much better. But then you have to unlayer, like the onion, you have to just get down to the base of it. So talk more about what that process looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first of all, process is exactly the word that I love to focus on, and not just for my coaching, but in general. Like there's so many things in our lives where we, again, that instant gratification, right? We want that quick fix. We want the thing that we know exactly what it looks like, instead of letting, like it's all the process. That's what teaches us about ourselves. That's what shows us both sides of the same coin. Like those are the things that we actually have to move through in order to really be connected and present in our lives. And so that's something that I feel like people really try to skate over, which surprise, because our whole culture is basically centered around
it's
doing
easier
things
if
in
you
that
just
way.
tell
Yeah,
me,
exactly.
like, step 1, step 2, step 3,
Yeah.
step 4, and now I'm fine.
Copy
Can you
paste,
just
copy
tell
paste,
me?
copy
So,
paste.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
and
I'll do
shocker, we
that.
can't find ourselves on the
No,
other side of that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You have to find your journey because it won't look
Yeah.
like anybody else's.
Exactly.
And I think that I'm starting to see, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but a lot of me feels people have come to expect a one-size-fits-all solution
Oh, very
to
much
this.
so.
And it's going to be as different a process as there are people. It's going to be
Yeah.
absolutely different, and people have to unlearn that it's here's a box that contains your solution. You're all getting the exact same thing, and you're going to be great, because you're going to fail if
Yeah.
that's how you're set up. And
Yeah.
Well, if
So-
one thing works for somebody, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for somebody else.
Because we're
you
all
know?
the same people and have the same needs and values, right?
Oh,
Right?
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
They
Yep.
just don't know that.
Yeah.
And I got to tell them, we're just all mindless robots, and we're going to do it my way.
Right.
Right.
Be a hot mess like me.
Yeah. So going back to the process piece. So the reason that I have year-long coaching is for, like, there's a huge piece to that, and it's self-trust. So a lot of us, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in our entire lives, it might be in certain pieces of our lives, but a lot of us struggle, especially as women, with self-trust. Like we're constantly being shown what we should do, or seeing somebody else do it. Even something you were talking about a second ago brought like comparison to mind.
Yes.
Like comparing
Yes.
our journey, our
Yes.
path, our needs to everybody else. And so that's where, if we don't really connect with what we need and trust that, that's where we get so disconnected. So part of the reason that my coaching is year long is because self-trust just doesn't happen overnight. Like it's definitely not instant gratification. It's a lot of this
Yeah.
feels really uncomfortable, and I don't know what to expect, and getting comfortable being uncomfortable, and not unsafe, but uncomfortable.
Right.
and being able to lean into the unknown and things that you maybe can't identify, but that's where you really start to build the self-trust. And not only that, but so I talk about boundaries. I mean, we all know they're important. It's a huge buzzword, and it's been a buzzword for a while, and it probably still will be for a while. But one of the things that I love talking about is a lot of times when we hear about boundaries, it's the difference between me and you. It's my preference compared to your preference. It's where I end and you begin.
Right.
But that's not entirely it. So the other piece of boundaries is if we are setting boundaries that honor who we are,
Yes.
they are the thing that keep us in our own personal integrity. And when you can do that and have the awareness to understand what that means for you, that's where you can really start to connect with yourself and realize you can trust yourself, which is where you can stand in your own power and realize that you have choice. And then that in turn is what happens to create the grounded confidence. And the only difference between grounded confidence and self-esteem is how much stage time you give the inner critic. So it's like one thing leads to another, leads to another. But once you start to get that grounded confidence and really lean into that, that's also where you really start to connect with your authenticity too. And I keep bumping that.
You're good.
We all do it. We all do
That
it.
is a normal.
So one thing that you said, and I find that I run into it a lot, is that everybody thinks that, the comparison thing. I'll get some women that will stay pretty quiet for a lot of group and that I also do individual, and some of them I will set up a time and say, I'm going to do one-on-one work with you outside of this. And then they just open up and there's so much stuff there. And I'm like, I would love for you to get to the point where you will share in class, and they're like, but my stuff is so much smaller than anybody else's. And I'm like,
How often do
you
we feel like
sit
that,
and
right?
suffer silently because in your mind, you've made this hard thing in your life just not important enough that I'm not going to waste anybody's time with what to you might sound small, but it's stopping their life from moving ahead. And that whole comparison thing, I'm like, you need to get rid of that and say, this is me. Look at this. Taking a class like yours, to me, I would consider that part of good self-care. It's learning self-confidence and self-thinking, and not the comparison thing. That's their journey. This is my journey. You have your journey. And just be there and supportive for all of it, but it doesn't mean that anybody's is less than,
Right.
or anybody's is worse, or
And I think there's another piece of the comparison that's really dangerous too. And it makes me think of when I met you and the whole story that you had behind your art prize exhibit. So the other thing that's really, really dangerous about the comparison is that when we are telling ourselves, first of all, like somebody has it worse, this is worse, not only are we not validating our experience and how we feel and all of those things, but on top of that, that means something's wrong with us, right? Like we keep that inner dialogue is like, I should have been able to fix it. I should have been able to get ahead of it. I should have been able to recognize it before it happened. And when we're not talking, when we're not talking to other people to hear that they have had maybe not the same exact experience, but they struggle with the same thoughts or the same feelings or whatever that is.
Right.
Like that's where the solidarity and the connection comes from, because then all of a sudden it's not something wrong with me, and that in and of itself makes you feel more empowered.
Absolutely.
Oh, I always say, if you speak it, you've just weakened it. I mean, it's just what happens, because you can build up in yourself what's going to happen if I say it.
Yeah.
What if people knew?
Yeah.
Shockingly, you might find out that a number of other people are like, I thought I was the only one. And then it has just lost its power. You're going to find out you're not quite as unusual as you may think. And you're not broken. But we've learned to be so quiet because everything has to look like it's good. I'm doing good. I'm doing fine. Life is so good.
Yeah.
Look at this. I worked really hard. We have a great place. I'm so good. I'm falling apart, but I'm real good.
Right.
I threw that out when I turned 40. I was like, I don't care anymore. I'm like, everybody can see everything. I don't even. I mean, I literally posted on Facebook like last week or whatever, just pictures of my dirty house. I'm like, I work 7 days a week. I work 3 different jobs. I'm like, I don't have any time. And I'm like, here's my dishes. Here's my laundry. Here's my, And
It's
it was
real.
I wanted to say, I don't live this perfect life. I don't have
I know.
everything together. Most of the time I'm winging it. I don't know what I'm doing, from
Which is
moment
most
to
of us.
moment.
I think you should pick a day and start a show me your real hashtag show
Yeah.
me your real and start posting a picture. This is reality. This is what it is. I've had a
there
rough
is
week.
there's that app, and now
shows some
is it
real
called
stuff.
Be Real that the kids are using now? I say kids, but like the teenagers.
Yes.
And it's you literally take a photo of where you are right now, exactly what you're doing, and then you have to respond to that person with whatever you're doing. So it's you don't have time to put the filters in and do
Right.
let me straighten up my room or let me get the best angle or whatever.
Right.
It's,
Yes.
you have to do it right now, and I love that concept because it's like, oh, I'm sitting studying here, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing the dishes again, or whatever it is. It is real. It's authentic, and that's where people are. So, but I think as women,
Authentic.
we are the worst with the comparison game.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we always feel like we have to have everything. Like our house has to be good, and our family has to be good, and our lives have to be good, and we have
Well,
to be
not only
like
that, but like
put
we're taught to be
together
the caregivers, and we're taught to take care of everybody else. And if we stop to say like this isn't okay, or it's too much, or I'm overextending, then what? Like how do we
failing.
define ourselves exactly?
Right.
So
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. So I love that you said you work mostly with women in like corporate and things like that, and I think that is so key because again they have these jobs on top of everything else, and they're very, I would say, kind of hyper focused on the goals that they set, and they're in the business community and they're doing these different things, so they're very like goal oriented and driven, and then you forget yourself in that, and you kind of get lost in the mix.
And not
I
only
would
that,
think.
but like to what end are they doing all that?
right,
Like, was it just something that somebody in their family told them that they should do for safety, like to be financially stable, or that's what you need to do to take care of yourself without really, I mean, how many of us in our 20s are sitting around thinking like, gosh, what really makes me happy?
I know. What am I passionate about?
Yeah.
What makes me excited
yeah,
to?
it seems like we're more we tend more to actually like just do what a lot of people are telling us to do, or other people are telling us to do, or what we see other people doing, instead of really paying attention to like what lights us up. So it's a wonder it takes us 10, 20 years to really start to go, some doesn't feel
I
right
know.
here.
18 is not the age where you decide
What you're going to
your
be for
life
the rest
course.
of your life.
Are you
No.
kidding me?
Yeah.
no,
Oh, I mean, yeah. When I was 18, I was ready for the world. It's gonna.
Yeah.
No,
Well, that part's
no,
cool.
I was not.
yeah,
No,
no,
It's-
you don't know.
Why do we expect these kids? So, okay, what's your major? What you gonna do?
Right.
What's your career for the rest of
Fit
your
it into
life?
another box.
And some people will do it and stay with it, and they've lived their entire life not doing something that's bad. I mean, they go to work, they do their thing, they retire, and. But if they had joy in it, was it a passion? Did it
Right.
fuel something in them? Was it something that really, if they said, if I could be doing anything, I would want to do this? Do they ever allow themselves to even dream that?
I was going to ask that
yeah.
question. If you've worked with women along the way who have then discovered who they are and what they want, and then have they switched out of whatever career they're in to follow
So
more?
this niche is
dreams.
actually very, very new.
Okay.
So I don't have a lot of information to back that up from my end. But what I can say is with women that I've worked with, maybe not necessarily in career, but once they really start to understand who they are and what's important to them, a lot of things in their life change, from boundaries to the responsibilities that they take on every day, to what they're willing to offload, to how they empower their friends and family to actually support them in their
Right.
journey versus still being the one that's doing all the
Doing
things
it
and wearing
all.
all the hats and spinning
Right.
all the plates. Gosh, there was something else you said a second ago too that I was like,
It'll come back.
yeah, it will. It was
Let's
yeah.
just jump in. It's
Yeah,
how we do things
yeah.
here.
Yeah, we're
So-
very informal.
I know. We're off and
We're-
running at the
we're
drop
not
of a hat on
professional.
whatever. Just
Anything.
But the big thing that I've seen is like, I think key to a lot of what I do with my clients is finding the language. It's very much building that awareness, but then also having the language so you can better understand who you are, but then you can also communicate that to the people around you too, which in
Right.
turn has a ripple effect of everybody else being able to take that and do the same thing.
that's a hard step for a lot of people to take, to say it to the people around them, because that's like, I'm openly admitting I can't do all of this. Can you
Like, you
step
don't-
into my life a little closer? And
Right.
that's a hard thing to do. And it's not that I ever had like that 9 to 5 career, my grown up career. I was a paramedic, so I had that weird kind of a schedule. But I still remember feeling such a sense of, but I have to do this. I have to show everybody that I can do
so
this.
strong,
And I am
got
just,
it.
Right.
you know,
Fear of disappointing people.
oh, for
is
sure.
huge.
Or even worse, proving some people right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you can't do it. Yeah, nope, you are going to fail. Yep, you aren't good enough. So you have a fear on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just,
Well, you can have a fear.
and it was awful.
Yeah.
It was just an awful existence. And
yeah.
I don't do that anymore.
And I remembered what I was going to say too. Something you said, yeah. So we were talking about like people that are in, business settings, corporate professions. And I remember specifically, and she wasn't a client, but she's a fairly close friend of just our circle. And at one point I was talking about the coaching that I do. And a lot of that was coming up because I also I work with a lot of entrepreneurs too. Like you have to be really brave to be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And so I was talking to her about some of the things that I was coaching my clients through. And she looks at me and she's like, so is there something wrong that I love working my 9 to 5 job? And I said, no, I can almost what are your core values? So
Yeah.
it's again, instead of comparing and thinking there's something wrong with you,
Right.
it's knowing things about yourself. And if you want to be in a 9 to 5 and that sustains the lifestyle that you want and you
Yes.
have happiness and it's somewhere, that's okay too.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be you
know.
out
Isn't
chasing
that
this
funny?
entrepreneurial
Right.
dream or
I
any of
know.
those things.
It's
it can
funny.
be
It's
what,
what is it not okay that I
Yeah.
love my... No, we're not saying that.
Yeah.
It just don't lose who you are
Exactly.
in that.
So I clean the wackadoodle.
So, yes. I mean, in everything you do, though, I mean, what if you got, your identity was in that? I'm just somebody that goes and
Right.
works with some micromanaging, difficult people who think that when they use the services of a business, thought that entitled them to purchase a person. And they didn't. And the way you drew boundaries with that was beautifully done. And women get lost in their titles. We get lost in wife. We get lost in mom. We get lost in what we might do for a career or any other thing. We get lost in those titles. The mom thing, when empty nest happens, you see so many women just lose their mind.
Yeah.
Because who am I? They literally do not know. I have a number of them sitting in my what do we do? Well, what do you love doing?
I don't know. Making sack lunches.
And
do
Right,
people even
but
do that anymore?
But as
No.
moms and as women, we
Yes.
don't allow ourselves to sit and dream
A
about
lot of
those
people
things.
don't,
We don't
yeah.
allow ourselves to sit and just think about what is important to us and what
Yeah.
lights us up and
Yeah.
what it's all about. What can
Everybody
I do for
else.
them? And
Yeah.
but I love my children, light my life, and I'm like, yes, they do, but at some point. That's not enough. You have to figure out who you are and what's important
You have to be
you.
comfortable spending time with yourself. And in order to do that, you have to know yourself. Otherwise, it's like, I'm going to sit with a stranger and we're going to have a real good time here. You have to be familiar with yourself and get to know you apart from those labels, apart from the titles. Who am I? And, like you said, what are your core values? What are my hopes and dreams? What really
Lights me up.
What makes me feel excited? Pay attention to those things and try to work those into your life because it's life changing.
It is.
There's a million things that want to come out. So I have a funny story about my son. So I am an empty nester. My son is going to be 19 next month. And so it's been a real interesting journey over the last few
Yes.
years. But we have a really funny story about that whole, my personal identity and having a conversation with him. Yeah, there it goes again. There was something else I was going to talk about. So we'll just go back to that. So my son, I remember when I first went into life coaching was about 4.5 years ago. And granted, I've been doing this very informally for probably 25 years.
Sure.
I'm the oldest of 7. I have 5 younger sisters. They're all in their 30s right now, which is hilarious, considering who my coaching clients are. And so there's I've always been in leadership management roles. And so when I went into coaching 4.5 years ago, I had a conversation with my son. I'd already done about a lot of the back end work for myself.
Yes.
And I remember having a conversation with him in the kitchen at our old house. And I was just like, look, I need you to do some other things. I need you to step up and take care of A, B, and C, because I can't be this old person and this new person at the same time.
Right.
Like I have to, like there has to be a reconciling of identities, but I have to step more into this other version of myself. And that means I need your help. And so he became invested at that point, right? But I remember at first he was just like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
What?
So the thing that helped him get it is, so I'm a huge like Marvel Comics fan.
Yes,
I
me too.
love
I love it.
superhero movies.
Yep.
And so that used to be the thing that him and I would bond over, was anything related to that. So there was at one time a series called Arrow, and I remember him coming to me probably about 6 months after that conversation. So obviously this
that
conversation
seed
was
was
sitting in
planted.
his
Yep.
head the whole time. And he finally came to me one day and he was like, I get it. Because when I had that conversation, he gave me a little pushback initially.
Sure.
And I was like, I'm not just your mom, and I'm not just
And they forget
Chris's
that.
daughter, and I'm not just,
Right.
you know, so-and-so's sister or so-and-so's best friend. I said, I'm Rebecca. First and foremost,
Yes.
the person I spend 24/7 with is Rebecca.
Right.
And he just was like,
What?
the heck does that mean? I mean, so it was like,
He's like
5 years
14,
ago.
like-
Yeah. So he was like
Got
14,
the
like,
weight of the world
cool
on his
mom,
shoulders
yeah.
now. Like,
But he came back like 6 months later and he's like, I get it. And the whole thing that helped him get it is like with these superheroes, like they have two versions of themselves.
Right.
They have the person that shows up when they're in the suit and the person that doesn't. And so when he
Yes.
realized that, he came back and is like, I get it.
get
now.
it
Yeah.
now.
And I was like,
love
thank goodness
that.
for
I
superheroes.
love that.
picture 14-year-old him going to school. It's like, is your mom your mom? Or is she Carol? Or is she Jennifer? Or is she Mary?
She wear a
Is she a
mask?
mom? What?
Do
Does
people not
anybody know
recognize
what
her
this
when just
means?
her eyes are covered like this?
It was so funny.
Oh, I love that though. I mean,
Yeah.
you never know like what's gonna get through to
Yeah.
to teenagers and kids, but yeah, that's fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
And a good life lesson for him.
Yeah.
Because it's not just women
Oh, yeah.
that have
at
this
all.
identity crisis thing too. You know, men get just as lost into, you know, titles and that. I'm sure there's a bunch of men that have been doing the daily grind for 20 some years that if they allowed themselves to go up and think about it, would give anything in the world to be doing something else. Go do it.
Yeah.
But I think
do
also,
it.
I think also men that have gone through their whole careers, you know, and then they're retired, and then they don't know who they are, what they're
That's
supposed
a
to do.
hard one.
Than empty
or-
nest syndrome.
I
It
do,
is.
you
Yeah.
know. I mean, and I remember I'm a huge Gilmore Girls
Yes.
fan, and I remember when her grandfather retired. He was like getting up at 4:00 in the morning still, and then he was like, "What am I
Yes.
supposed to do with my day?" And then he was like
It's
saying things to
tough.
his wife, like, "What are you doing today?" And she had all these lists of things, and he's like, "I will go with you." She's like, "Oh, good, that's great, okay."
Who
You
are
know?
you? Because you haven't been home this much.
Right.
And
Right.
all
But
of
when
a
you
sudden they
live
are.
that
Yeah. It's
routine
hard.
and
Yeah.
that's so much of who you are,
Yeah.
how do you step into that next chapter and
That's-
how do you figure that out? So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
we're watching that happen with my in-laws, and it is profoundly sad to watch. It's been hard as they're trying to figure out and adjust. I mean, he has been hardworking, multiple jobs at the same time for
Right.
just decades, and he's well into his 70s, and he finally quote unquote retired. I don't think any of them in that. I don't think they know what that word means yet.
Yeah.
But it's almost like they're lost and they don't know how to navigate this world and this life and, well, what are we supposed to do? And, you know, and my mother-in-law gets just all agitated and upset. What? But he's not doing anything. He's sitting there reading books. That's great. Right? I'm so glad he's reading.
Take a note from his book.
And-
Pun intended.
You know, and I'm like, he's earned that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just an an adjustment for him. It's been just as hard for her.
absolutely.
And they don't know how to be together in the
Yeah.
house. Because he's never been, he was most of the time gone just because of choices they made in
Yeah.
life, what priorities were, and private education and all of that. And so she ran the house, she paid the bills, she did. And it's hard for her to allow somebody into that space and to have somebody else there. And I think sometimes I wonder, it's like, are you just finding out that you don't like each other's company. It often looks that way. It's like you're strangers and you don't know what to even do. And
So
it's like,
that makes me think about, so when COVID hit, so my boyfriend and I are both self-employed.
Self-employed.
I mean, kind of, because we both love what we do, right?
A new line of work. I'm
Yeah,
gonna be
but it was so
self-employed.
funny because when COVID happened, and I love being at home. I love to go out and explore too. I love to be on all the spaces, but I'm an ambivert. I'm equal parts extrovert and introvert, so I love my time out and about.
Oh,
and
I have
love
a word. I've never.
Yeah,
Good,
I
'cause
just taught somebody
I
else
can
that
do
within the
both.
last week too, and they were like, "This is life changing."
Yes. I think I need to like know that word and remember
Yeah.
it, 'cause that.
So during COVID, he and I were both self-employed. Well, then all of a sudden, like neither one of us was working. I actually picked up one of my biggest contracts during COVID, but before that happened, like we were both stuck at home. Son was at home, so we were all three in the house. We lived in a ranch-style house. And I am very much I'm the first one that gets up in the morning. I mean, my son and I would get up together, but he went to school, right? So it was
Right.
just me. And I'm a person that creates space in my morning. That's what sets the tone and the intention for the rest of my day. So it's me time. I read. I, at the time, snuggled with my cat and had my 1 cup of coffee and watched the bumblebees or sat and listened to the birds. Like, I'm
Yes.
very much that person.
It's your process.
Yeah, but the boys both love noise, or they just don't know that they need quiet. I don't know. But at the time,
I
it
go
was
with
like,
the second one.
Yeah.
They just don't know.
So it was hilarious because then all of a sudden, all three of us are in this space pretty much 24/7.
Yeah.
And I was losing my mind because ranch style home with an open layout, you can hear everything. So son's playing video games, watching TV in his bedroom, boyfriend's in the living room watching TV, and I'm in the coffee room just like,
I just
Like,
want
I
a quiet
lost
cup
my
of
quiet.
coffee and my
I
bumblebees,
lost it.
please.
But so it was very disruptive,
It's hard.
right? But nobody was doing anything bad or good, right or wrong.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, podcast is ruined.
So it was funny because I remember thinking like nobody's doing anything right or wrong. It's just like we each need something different right now.
Right.
But how do I get what I need?
Right.
So my boyfriend's a contractor. I took one of his ladders and put it to the roof. That's all I needed. I just needed to know that there was a way that I could still get my time by myself. And I was good.
Yeah.
And that made everything just even right out. And it was only an issue for a hot second, but it was,
worked
again, like
through
there
it.
has to be space for all of us and trying to figure that out. And if you don't have awareness and all of a sudden it's really uncomfortable, it's just,
Yeah, because that
messy.
really threw everybody for a loop. It was a new experience that you're figuring it out on the fly. And if you don't already have implemented a good system for approaching
and
life,
if you're not good with
that's
uncomfortable
gonna
feelings,
throw you into turmoil. For me, the worst part about it was the isolation. As much as I love being home, there has to be an end to it, and then get me some people. And it was just I felt like anger boiling over into almost rage. I'm like this, and it was a hard process to reset my mind to accommodate that into my life. So what do we do? So then my husband and I starts like, okay, we need to get out and do something, but everything's shut. You can't go. We're going to get our inflatable costumes. I was a giant hippo with a tutu, and he was a T-Rex dinosaur and all patriotic. We inflated those things, and we went for a 5K run
oh my gosh, that's
through
perfect.
downtown Rockford.
Yes.
So
And
amazing.
then at the dam where we finished,
Yeah.
I did a glamour shot thing and like an inflatable hippo, full out thing. And people were like, from a distance,
Right.
of course,
From a distance.
But I'm like, I'm fully enclosed in a plastic bubble. I'm
Right,
safe.
right.
But then people were like, and then all of a sudden you started to see
Oh,
some
yeah.
smiles, or people would be laughing
Yeah.
or whatever. And I'm like, yeah. So we just started doing things like that.
Yeah.
And
That's
then that's when we
amazing.
got the party bus, and we started taking dates outside in our party bus. We'd have dinner out there and just hang out, put the music on and lights, and pretend we're out to eat. Just you have to accommodate and figure it
yeah.
out. But I wasn't doing well at first, and like, okay,
Yeah, accommodate, but also like not judge yourself for how you're feeling. That's the other piece. I feel like, and especially with you talking about your in-laws, like that want to make it feel better. Fix
Yes.
it.
Right.
Fix it. Either for yourself or the other people or
Yeah.
person that you're interacting with. But like we're so quick to try to fix it instead of just letting it be
Let it be.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Right.
let it be.
So no wonder we're not good at bumping up against that.
We are not used to being uncomfortable anymore. No. We want it fast and we want it comfortable. That's it. And if it's not, then there surely's got to be a program
I can
or a
shove it
prescription
down
to
or
make it, you know?
yeah,
Right.
deny it or
And we need to get back to being okay with being uncomfortable for a while we figure some things out and get life, back onto even keel.
Well, and I love what you said about that nobody was doing anything wrong in that situation. They were just being themselves.
Yeah.
Everyone was, because everybody has their own thing that they do.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, it's that self-awareness of, I'm not angry with them because they're not doing anything wrong, but I'm still wiggly and I don't feel good. I don't feel comfortable with what I'm experiencing. And so I love that. I love trying to figure that out because for me, like when I work with kids and I work with teens, there is always a reason for behavior. There's always something behind
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And most of the
Find
time,
out
it is
what it
not what
is.
you think it is or what they think it is. So again, teaching the children how to be self-aware of things like you're just wiggly right now. Let's figure out what it is, that's causing this and then figuring out the solution from there rather than just getting angry with each other and just, kind of, I've learned over the past couple of years to try to verbalize. Like
Yes.
I will say to my family, to my friends,
Yes.
I am like this right now and I don't know why. I don't know what's causing it, but this is how I'm feeling. This is where I'm at so that they don't think that I'm just angry.
Right.
I mean, I literally was talking to my 18-year-old about it the other day. We had this amazing conversation. And I was telling him about when I was younger and I had, a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old at home. And I would have certain people that came into our house. We lived in a very, very tiny house, and it had a lot of issues, mice and water issues, and it was just very tiny and no closets and no storage and all this, right? Plus, I have a newborn, and I'm postpartum and all this, right?
yeah.
You got all this stuff.
And I would get judged. People would come into my house and actually tell me, like, your house is too dirty. Or I had somebody show up with cleaning supplies one day and just gave me the cleaning supplies. Like,
They
didn't
did
clean.
not.
And I was like, okay.
Oh,
or
I'm taking
like,
names. I'm taking
some
names.
people were like, we don't want to come to your house because it's dirty. And I'm like, okay, so, but I'm also dealing with like, critter
I need
infestation
help.
and all these things. And like,
Yeah.
my husband was working like 60 hours a week and it was just this insane time. So I'm telling my son about all of this. And he goes, that makes total sense. He's like, I didn't know you were dealing with all of that then. And I'm like, well, you were one, so I'm sure
right.
you didn't,
So-
yes, go ahead. Do the thing, make it look good. So he says, I just thought that you just were like angry all the time, and all these things. And then I told him, I said, when we moved into our new house, which was 12 years ago, I'm like, I was super anal about keeping everything clean and all these things. And like, we have this fresh start. And I'm like, nobody. And he's like, I didn't understand your motivation behind that. And he said, now that I know that I understand that, he's like, wow, that was a lot to go through and a lot to deal with and all of that. And he's like, it's amazing how, you don't know what the other person is going through or what their motivations are behind things, and he's like, and now he's like, you've just been super chill, for the past couple of years and all of this. And I'm thinking, okay.
She met me and I'm a hotter mess.
I was like, super chill is not a word you used when you were a couple of years younger. But I loved that he was able to, we were just able to have that conversation. And I, it was almost like he saw me as more of a human than just his mom. It was kind of like,
So good
oh,
for them
you're
to
dealing
know.
with things in life
Yes.
and all
Well,
of that.
and just
so.
like taking the time to understand all of us humans in general, like we take things so personally.
Oh, yeah.
It has to be me, like, because again, right, we're with us 24/7. So who else would it be about?
No,
It's
I'm
got
a
to be me.
sponge
Whether
about that stuff.
And
It's-
so that was one thing I worked really hard to normalize with my son was feelings and having big emotions and all of those things. Because growing up, I did not have that. We swept everything under a rug.
so
we
did
didn't communicate
our
about
rug was
anything. We
Preaching
didn't
to the
feel
choir.
our
Yeah.
feelings. Yeah, and I was. So when I
Yeah,
had
we had
my son, I
wall-to-wall
was like, we're
carpet
not
in our
doing this
house, yeah.
anymore. We're going
Right.
to feel the feelings, the uncomfortable ones, the good ones. But that's the other thing I think that people don't realize is the fact that if you don't feel those heavier, more challenging feelings,
Oh, yeah.
as much as you allow those is how much you'll allow the good, bright, happy feelings too.
Oh, that's
So
brilliant.
you cannot,
Yes.
and Brene Brown is one that talks about this all the time.
Oh, she's amazing.
Oh yeah, and Atlas of the Heart talks about all the different feelings and like I can't remember what she calls them, but the ones that are near enemies of feelings and just how tricky it is. But if you don't allow yourself to feel the heavy
Right.
stuff. You can't feel the really light
Don't
stuff
be
too.
afraid of them because they're
Exactly.
going to tell you so much.
They're
I
information.
promise you, when you get through it, what you will learn in allowing yourself not to fear it, but to face them and get through it, you're going to be thankful for the lesson afterwards. You're going to be so much further down the road. And I think you're going to get less of the that unexplained.
Yes.
I'm not sure. The more you sit with them, the more you allow them to come, because we're so used to, like you said, you know, the rug
Covering
or
up, pushing
wall
them
to ceiling,
down,
like, you know,
denying
full
them,
house,
numbing
top,
them.
bottom, step, stairs, basement, everything's
Yeah.
carpet in that house. But anyways, I have no carpets in my house, but that in itself was a long process, because once you get those ingrained reactions of like, oh, there's big feelings. Okay, tamp that down and move on. Don't talk about this. The big stuff isn't there. Yeah, it is there.
There's another
and it's going to show. in it.
one. I stumbled on this probably about 3 months ago, but one of my favorite educators is Gabor Mate, and he is a Canadian physician, but he was actually born in Hungary during the World War, and so he really focuses on, in what he talks about, how trauma manifests as dis-ease, and whether it's generational, societal, cultural, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, all the things. But he talks about how disease manifests as, or how trauma manifests as disease. But he did an article with Psychology Today recently, and if I only had my clients read one thing ever, it would be this article, because the article, I can't remember the main title, but the subtitle is The Hidden Dangers of Being Nice.
Yes.
But it talks about how 80+% of women are being diagnosed with autoimmune diseases, and his theory is because they're repressing their emotions.
Yeah. The body mind connection
Exactly.
is tremendous.
Yeah.
Let's just throw cortisol out there.
Right.
The stress hormone and what that does to a body. You see it in our population. You just do. I mean, it's not being mean, rude, cruel, or anything. It just is. It's how our bodies are created. And I don't think society, I don't think, has been this, hasn't looked like this before. We haven't had the health issues, the medical crises, all these, all the junk. A lot of it is this. So much of it is this, and not addressing it.
Yeah.
Just turning that off because I gotta live. I gotta go to work. I'm so busy. Got to do this and this and this and this, and that's uncomfortable. I don't want to sit with that. So you ignore it, but your body can't escape
Holds
it.
on until it comes back.
Because
Right.
it's contained. It's contained inside of you. It, you might pretend. I'm not,
And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
It is.
you're just pretending. Yep, it's not there, and I'm fine. And your body's like, yeah, well, we're not, and we're gonna start showing you.
Why am I exhausted? Why can't I think? Why can't I turn my mind off? Why can't I wait? And
Right.
Well,
Right.
Yeah.
So we are actually coming towards the end of our podcast.
Already?
I know. It's amazing. So I would love for you to just leave us with, I don't know, first steps or words of wisdom, just, for anybody that might be feeling all the
fix
things
us.
that we talked about.
Oh no! First of all, we don't believe in the word fix. Fix is not a word around
Thank
here,
you,
so
'cause-
let's start with that.
We
No
don't
fixing.
allow
There's
that.
nothing
That's
wrong
a
with you.
banned three-letter word.
Yes.
So
Right.
good
So
deal.
the biggest thing, so there's a couple of hacks that I use with my clients and people in general. And so I think, especially when we talk about women, like we're so bad at doing things for ourselves, right? So there are a couple of phrases that I use that really help start to flip the switch on that. So one of the things I always say when I'm talking to somebody, if they're really struggling or if they're coming up against a hard feelings and just really having a hard time, like letting that be and accepting that, is be kind to my friend. And I encourage other people not only to say it to themselves, but
Right.
also to say them to other people, because it's like, it's a different incentive, right?
Right.
Eventually what we get to is I'm doing it for somebody else, but I'm still taking that same action towards myself. So that's something that I always say is be kind to my friend. So that's the
Very
first
good.
one. And then the second is always, we always hear, like we've heard before, like, what did I do to deserve this? And that can be something really amazing. Like it's, you're getting awarded for something or being acknowledged for something, or it can be something really, really hard where you're like, why me? What did I do to deserve this? And so the thing that I always say there is not what did I do to deserve this, especially when we're talking about positive things, because you already deserve amazing things simply for being.
Right.
But it's what did I do to receive this?
Ooh.
So
Oh,
when
I really like
love
that
so it's
change
what
of
did I
one
do
word.
to receive? Because
remarkable.
when we think about the positive things, you still have to allow those things to come through. You still have to. There's this mantra I listen to all the time, and it says, "My heart is open to give, my hands are open to receive. My hands are open to give, my heart is open to receive." Because it's like this infinity
love it.
circle. It's a cycle. It's not
Love
a
it.
one-way street.
Right.
But when we talk about those more challenging things that we're facing, so when we say, what did I do to receive this? It's really holding yourself accountable and again, building that self-awareness around
it.
what boundary is missing here. What part of myself am I sacrificing? What am I compromising that I shouldn't be? And really going back to the drawing board and making sure moving forward that you put different boundaries in
Yes.
place. So
I love it.
That's it.
I love it.
I'm all like, mic drop. You know, like that.
good.
That is so.
It's
That
so
is so
good.
beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very,
Oh,
very,
that
very
is
good.
fantastic.
And useful tools, because life isn't guaranteed to be smooth sailing. You get the good tools though, and you're going to continue sailing.
And then I would say flow like water.
yes.
And they're simple. They're simple too, and
Yeah.
they're easy to remember, and
Yeah.
they're also easy
Right.
to implement.
Yes.
You know, so it's not this complex, 12-step system of
No. Yeah,
something.
but
you can
where's
just
the rest
simply,
of it? Where's the rest of it?
right?
Because
right.
we need
all
more
there.
information.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
that's what. Yeah, input more because that'll help.
Yeah.
So-
I think about that sometimes. I'm like, the amount of information that we take in like
Oh, yeah.
1 minute
it's
is
remarkable.
absolutely
I need
mind blowing.
like a USB slot right here, so I
Right?
can put it in and just. Can you just get all the extra out, store it over there, and leave
Yep.
me with this? Because, like, really,
I know. I know. Yeah. Well, good. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
I am
you, guys. This was
so thankful that you were
amazing.
here
Yeah.
today, and we
Me
will have a
too.
link to all of your stuff on our pages.
I'm going to check it all out. I've enjoyed having you here. I've enjoyed the conversation. We all are very passionate about helping women and just building them up and walking with them and equipping them to.
And self-compassion.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that it looks so different in what we
Absolutely.
do. It doesn't look the same, but it's recognizing
Yes.
needs in our
Very
community.
similar threads.
Go girls.
Yes.
I love
Thank
it.
you, ladies.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, tune in next week for our next episode, and please make sure to like and subscribe so we can get the message
Yes,
out to as many
please.
women as possible. And if you guys have any great ideas for topics this fall, please feel free to let us know. All right. Bye.